Thank you for that. I wear a couple of different hats here too. So is everybody familiar with the Challenger Learning Center down in Kenai? Everybody? Okay. If you're not, we do STEM education, and we actually do it through simulated science or space missions, which a lot of people would go, well, why in the world would the Challenger Learning Center, like Cassidy just said, be involved in food security? The short story is that NASA has always been involved in food security. I'll go over a little bit of that as we go along, but just to touch a little bit more on what the Challenger Learning Center does, not only do we do STEM education through our space science, our simulators, which if you haven't seen it, please do come up and see it. But also, we're down in Homer quite often because we also do marine and aviation safety training. And so we work a lot down here in the Homer area with your migrant student population, teaching water survival, not only to the students, but we also do a lot with your with industry partners down here as well. In addition to our other vast array of STEM workshops that we do, we also travel around the state, and we actually do virtual programming as well. And so I really contemplated on how to start this, but first and foremost, I did want to start with why NASA would actually sponsor a food security and sustainability program up here in Alaska. And not only did we get money from NASA, but also the Alaska Space Grant Consortium out of Fairbanks, in addition to NISNet. This picture that you see here is actually another tie-in that we have, my husband and I, have AK Fermentation Company, and this is one of our growers that we have up in the valley, and we get almost 100% of our cabbage that we ferment through this grower up in the valley. So we're all about local growers, local foods, and buying and purchasing local. So as I was saying, food security has always been a top priority for NASA. I always say lack of vitamin C was all it took to give sailor scurvy. Well, those were sailors that were trying to find new worlds. Think about NASA trying to find new worlds in outer space. One of the prime concerns that they are going to need to address is food security. So, and as a lot of you guys know, NASA studies Earth just as much as it's actually more so than it studies space. And food security has been a part of our simulated space missions since the beginning. As part of every program that we do, every space mission that we do when the students come into the center, they actually have to work on food security for the astronauts. So it's been something that the Challenger Learning Center has been doing since we opened. Oh gosh, we're going on 23 years now. And NASA has a team of satellites, and if we have time at the end, which I don't think we will, but I'll be happy to share it if anybody is interested, I've got about a 5-minute video that actually shows exactly what the satellites that NASA has, Eyes on Earth, is actually contributing to helping our farmers and growers, not only on land, but also in the sea. So as far as the mariculture, NASA has a lot of information and data that they're gathering from those satellites as well. So they're monitoring soils, crop health, droughts, groundwater on land, and then in the sea, all of those elements as well. And we're going to play this quick video here, and this is just a very short clip, not the long one I was talking about, that actually goes how the Arctic plays a big role in how NASA studies food security. We had to kind of go a roundabout way. So I actually love it when I get that question. Like, what in the world is Challenger doing in food security? We always have been. And we play, NASA plays a pretty important role in some of the new information that's coming out. And this I actually found, which I thought you guys would all be interested in, or I found that just even more solidifies how NASA is involved. Cynthia, actually a senior research scientist at NASA, won the 2022 World Food Prize from the World Food Prize Foundation. So our modeling work provided a foundation for decision makers around the world to create strategies to adapt our food systems to how the planet is changing. And so it's a pretty big deal. It just kind of drives home again how the research that NASA is doing plays a role in not only Alaska's ability to grow the crops that we need that are sustainable here, but also around the world. So now, what is food security? I'm sure all of you guys know, and when I was actually looking at definitions, I was really surprised at how many definitions of food security that there actually was. So I decided to stick with what the United States Division of Agriculture defines food security, and they define it as access by all people at all times to have enough food for an active and healthy life. Okay? So access to, which means not only their ability to grow it, but also to their ability to maybe buy it at the local markets or trade or that kind of thing. And it's not just about the farming, because a lot of times when people think about food security, we talk a lot about the growers, farmers markets, that kind of thing. But we need more than just the farming aspect of it or the crop selection. We need eggs, milk, meat, foraging, subsistence, salts. I put that on there because I know Homer Salt Company, is a pretty big deal down here. Condiments, prepared foods. So it's access to all of those things, not just the ability to grow. And so the tendency, I think, when we talk about food security and sustainability for some of us is to actually focus on like gardening and growing and things like that, but it's a lot more than that. The Food Bank of Alaska, some of the resources that we have around here that combat people who are food insecure, which I think, I was actually really surprised, and I'll share a little bit more about the Kenai Peninsula Food Bank, but through this grant, we actually had the opportunity to really partner with and work a lot more with the Kenai Peninsula Food Bank, and I was shocked at the amount of food that runs through there in the user groups, and it's not just people coming in and getting groceries, it goes a lot deeper than that. But the Food Bank of Alaska, in any given week, 6,300 Alaskan households turn to the food bank's network of food pantries, and this is around the state. Soup kitchens, senior centers, and other programs for food assistance, an estimated 51,900 unique households, or almost 155,000 people are served annually through the food banks. So, why that resource is wonderful and great to have. And then if we look at directly to the Kenai Peninsula Food Bank, a total of 1,343,100, I feel like I need to put my glasses on, 470 pounds of food were dispersed just here on the Kenai Peninsula. It's broken down, some of them are senior programs which have very limited requirements. Some of them are income-based programs, some of them are non-USDA, but essentially that's a lot of poundage of food that was actually distributed, and that's just here on the Kenai Peninsula. The Fireweed Diner, 17,455 meals were served out of the diner that's located. Has anybody been to the Kenai Peninsula Food Bank? Know where it's at? But it's in between Kenai and Soldotna. The Anchor Point Food Pantry, 5,000 meals were served, and then the new Nikiski Shelter of Hope, over 17,000 meals were served. That's a lot of food that's being dispersed through an agency. They salvaged, and this is what I thought was great. So food that was going to be thrown away or dispersed, they were able to salvage over 860,000 pounds of food from local stores and distributors. So food that would essentially have gone to waste, they were able to actually put to use, which I thought is great. And they also deliver firewood to people, which I thought was, well, not deliver, I'm sorry, they can come and pick up the firewood to people, which I thought was another great resource. But in addition to that, they're actually, what we got to be involved with was we helped them rebuild their big high tunnel and their hoop house and get things planted that were actually usable and engage the community. They were able to harvest over 500 pounds of potatoes that they were actually able to disperse through the community and use in the Firewood Diner. But I'll just share a personal story, which I thought was actually more amazing that comes out of that. And it's not about just giving those potatoes away, but I was actually heading in with the owner of Stellaria Test Garden, who also started the Soldotna Seed Library. I'll hopefully be able to touch on that in a little bit more. But we were walking in because we're helping them develop a rotation process for their gardens to keep it long-lasting and sustainable. And this gentleman who was actually picking up food came out to me and he says, I have been so excited about this garden. I just moved into a new place. I have a greenhouse and I cannot wait to start growing my own food. And I thought, that's it. It's not about, gee, I gave away 50 pounds of potatoes today. It's that even that one person was encouraged to go back then and to learn and grow their own food, which I find very exciting. In 1955, 55% of food consumed in Alaska was produced in Alaska. Today, we import 95% of our non-grown, that's non-store-bought, or I'm sorry, store-bought wild, non-wild food supply. There's only 3 to 5 days supply of foods in our grocery stores. So for those of us on the Kenai Peninsula, particularly up in Kenai and Soldotna during red season, we know this, right? During July, we walk into the grocery store, we're like, there's no milk today. You know, we don't think too much about it. But when the pandemic happened, and it wasn't just in July anymore, it became a little bit more real. There's a lot of logistical challenges, not just within the state of Alaska, but also getting things to Alaska. So it kind of really brought it to the forefront of what we as a state needed to do to increase our food security and sustainability. The good news is there has been an increase in farmers. In the last 5 years, while the lower 48 decreased 3% in farms, statewide Alaska grew by 30%, and Kenai Peninsula grew by 60% of new farms, which I think is an amazing fact, and I think it's really encouraging. The natural disasters, like we were talking about, global pandemics, it wasn't just the pandemic, it was earthquakes, volcano eruptions that halted air traffic. There's a lot of things that make it really clear that we have to increase our food security here, not just on the Kenai Peninsula, but statewide. And even particularly on the Kenai Peninsula, if our road systems, or we get cut off from Anchorage, we're in a little bit bigger problem there. There has been, I'm sorry, that slide is, I should have put maybe a different color on there, but there has been there's been a lot of movement lately at the statewide level. I know the governor's really interested in food security and sustainability, and there's been some new task force that has been implemented. But what on the individual level that I feel is even more telling is how us as individuals and then communities are really our interest level and our concern over food security is more. It's not just at the government level, it's us as individuals and communities. And there was a study that was done in 6 and 10, really after the pandemic. We're like, wow, we really have to make some changes. We really have an increased interest in gardening and growing and that kind of thing. So, and it's also, the studies are showing that not only is it just more nutritious for us, it's healthier for us, we know where it's coming from, but it also has a big impact on our mental and emotional well-being as well. So there's a lot of benefits. Why grow your own food or buy locally? So there's been an increase. I know down here in Homer, you guys have a massive farmers market, correct? Right? And so you're seeing an increase in resources around local growers, the Alaska Food Hub, Kenai Local Foods, a lot of opportunities for people to grow and buy local from local farmers, right? And not even just in the summer months anymore, you're seeing an increase in organizations that are actually being able to stay open year-round and provide local resources year-round. And so why we're all about buy local, grow local, right? If you're growing your own things, and that's what I really like to encourage as far as the resources that are available, but I'd really like to encourage people to look into how they themselves as individuals can increase their individual food security. But you can grow exactly what you want. It's fresher, more nutritious. You know, when we get something shipped up here from the grocery store, it's probably not only just the fact that it took how long to get up here on the ship or the bus, but it's probably been sitting in some warehouse for a really long time. It certainly wasn't picked at the height of freshness, right? So you're getting, it's fresher, more nutritious. Pesticide use reduces food waste. Whatever we don't use, we can recycle into compost, or if we ourselves don't want to get into composting, there's lots of resources that we can take our food waste to composters who are doing it right here on the Kenai Peninsula. Even with limited space, and I'll go into a little bit more about what we did at Challenger Learning Center through this grant, is that what we tried to show is even if you've got a patio, even if you've got a window ledge, even if you've got an acre or 10 acres or whatever space you have, you still have the ability to grow your own food. What we did through this particular grant is we did 3 community workshops, 2 of which have been completed. I know Rusty was one of our speakers at our first workshop with some of the work that he does out at his place. But what we did is we wanted to show people, and not, I mean, there's a lot of newcomers to Alaska that growing wild, maybe they grew somewhere else, maybe they don't know how to grow in our environment, so that's what's important. So our first workshop focused on crop selection and growing methods, right? So it's not just about selecting the crops that are most nutritious for you or that grow here, but also given the space that you have. Do you have a high tunnel? Do you have open beds? Do you have pots, containers? You know, what is it that you're going to be able to grow yourself that actually is going to work for you? And what kind of space you have. If you only have, 3 containers, is it best just to grow leaf lettuce? Or do we need to look at what is going to be the most nutritional for our systems and our body given the space that we have? And that's one of the things that we work on at Challenger Learning Center when the kids in their space missions are actually selecting crops for their journeys into other areas. Is that going to be the best choice? If I can only grow 2 things, is it best to grow watermelon or is it best to grow spinach? What is going to be the best for our bodies? And also we went a lot into seed savings and the history of seeds. So while one particular product may grow really well, even down on the Kenai Peninsula, is it going to grow the same like up in Fairbanks, or is it going to grow somewhere else? So we worked a lot on seed saving, and once you have a particular product that does grow well, how to save those seeds. So we actually had Laura Haglund with the Stadillers Test Garden actually teach us how to save seeds and actually what works well for our environment. And she did start the Soldotna Seed Library. I honestly don't know if you guys have one down in Homer, but the Soldotna Seed Library is something where you can go in and everybody can get seeds for free, and they're proven seeds that work for our environment. So it's a really, really wonderful program. The second workshop we did was wild harvest and foraging. So it's not just about what we can grow, it's what's available in our natural community, right, or in our environments. So it's about what can we harvest, and it's not just about plants and edibles, it's about fish, it's about meat. So we were able to have speakers, and we did partner with the Salamantok Native Association, and we so benefited from their knowledge, not just on their growing methods, but also on their harvesting methods. And then we also had the Kanaitsi tribe that actually joined us that day as well and shared some of their local knowledge of edibles and plants, which was pretty fantastic. And then we had a lot of speakers that were able to talk to us about harvesting wild game, harvesting moose, and fish, and that kind of thing. So when I talk about it's not just about the growing, I truly do mean that it's about harvesting and making for sure that we're able to get whatever it is that we need to survive. And then our final workshop will be on preservation methods, and that'll be in February. If you need more information, get a hold of us at Challenger, and we'll make for sure that you get it. But the preservation methods is now that you've harvested, now that you've grown, we want to make for sure that you're able to use that throughout the year and not just at the height of the season. So the final workshop will be that we're going to have some design challenges on designing cold storage. We're going to talk a lot about fermentation, of which I happen to know just a little bit about. And then we'll be going into freeze drying. I would love to talk to you about getting some more information on that type of thing, and is it available for us as individuals to maybe use as well. So there's a lot of opportunity there for us so not just, we want to round it out with that. And so this quote here, when I was talking about we really want to teach people how to do it themselves, has anybody ever actually looked up that quote and Googled it? I was shocked at the amount of definitions, because I was like, I want to get this right. I want to quote it right. There is no right one. I'm just going to say that. There's a zillion different ones, and so it was really shocking to me, and it went back way back. It's like, oh, no, it's an Italian proverb. No, it's a Chinese proverb. No, it's an Indian proverb. So I kind of meshed them a little bit, and essentially it's give a man a fish, and he'll be hungry again tomorrow, and teach him to fish, and he'll be rich forever. And then another of the saying, which I thought was actually a really great one for today, was teach him to fish, and you'll give him an occupation that will feed him for a lifetime. And I thought, that's great, I love it. So I kind of took them and mashed them together. But then I want to take that another step further, and it says, what if there's no knowledge of fish and that it tasted good and was a wholesome form of nourishment, right? So what if you run into something, not that we would ever have that here in Alaska, but I'm just saying what happens if somebody were to see a food resource out in the wild and go, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. It's like, well, wait a minute. Yes, you can. So it's important that it's about, for me, it's about teaching and passing along the knowledge of growing, harvesting, and preserving. So it's not just about, here's an apple today. Let's figure out how we can grow that apple. And looking forward, these are some of the kids that participated in some of our stuff. So looking forward, the Challenger Learning Center of Alaska is a unique opportunity to engage Alaskan youth. We have thousands of youth who pass through our doors every day, or I'm sorry, every year. Wish it was every day. And what we plan to do is increase the engagement opportunities incorporating this topic into our programs. So expanding on what it is that that we can actually teach the youth. Because our philosophy is we want to teach them young, we want to inspire them, and we want to show them what a lifetime of healthy eating, growing your own food, and eating real food, right? Growing it yourself and how you can do that. And I didn't get to a lot of the additional resources that are available, but if anybody wants to reach out and get a hold of me, I can do that. As far as the work that's being done across, not only on the Kenai Peninsula, but across the state on food security and sustainability, because there's a tremendous amount of opportunities and ways to connect with groups and organizations who are really, really trying to increase that for us here in Alaska. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie. And originally, up until the top of this week, we had an additional speaker on this topic. Her name's Rose McGinnis, and she lives in Soldovia, and she's a community member over there, a friend of mine. And she had something come up and she couldn't make it. But she did send me a statement that she wanted to make to share with you all about, Marnie's message of what is happening here on the peninsula. How can we become more engaged and proactive in our food sustainability processes and part of that world? And it's really important that I am very pro-rural Alaska, but I'm also very Soldovia-centric in terms of making sure that our communities across the water are remembered, and that you guys keep us in mind when you're talking about all of these processes, these industries, these businesses, that we have a pocket of the world over there that is off the road system, and sometimes things get a little bit more challenging when we have very limited resources. So Rose wanted to pass on that her garden is called Rosanna's Garden. It's a small market farm on the south end of the Kenai Peninsula, located in the off-road community of Soldovia. It grows food for the community through a combination of indoor hydroponics and intensive farming on a half acre. Soldovia has unstable food access and expensive supply chain problems. Rosanna's Garden is seeking to address these problems and to establish a new culture about food and food security in Soldovia. We believe that it is not only possible to grow and supply fresh produce for the community year-round, but that it is increasingly necessary and that it can provide jobs in the community and be economically sustainable. In 2020, Rosanna's Garden worked with community partners in Soldovia to establish the town's first farmers market and first ever market farm. Then in 2021, Rosanna's Garden expanded their growing capacity through a project with Rural Cap to create 2 indoor hydroponic farms, one at the local school and one on the site at the farm. Through that project, the local school children learned how to grow food in the winter in water. At the end of the semester, the food that they grew was donated to the local senior meals program, and the farm continued to donate to those programs throughout the life of the project. Since they've begun in 2020, the demand in the community has far exceeded their supply. They're continuing to work on establishing the model for sustainable year-round micro-farming in off-road Alaska, and we are seeking new ways to continuously share our work and educate others on that possibility. They hope that the work will impact their current reliance on outside food sources as they continue to work to find the best path forward towards food security and a sustainable way of providing it. They want to point out how important it is to shift the culture and thinking about small-scale farming in Alaska. When we rely less on outside sources, we provide a host of benefits, including stewardship of local land, increased nutrient density in our food supply, and impact to the local economy. So she apologizes for not being able to be here, but she brings up a great point, is that one person and her passion for gardening and her passion for growing food has changed our community, our tiny community in Soldovia, and changed the way that we look at how we get our food over there. Now we have a healthier, access to food, and we have a higher quality of living just by that one person's perseverance and passion. And I do think it's really inspiring, the work that Marnie does and that education and outreach to our children and our communities about how easy it is to just start growing from a seed and kind of change your community and change the way that you look at your cultures, your food security, and how you live in a healthy manner. So I'm happy that I was able to share that.